A man can destroy his marriage in 5 seconds, but spend the rest of his life hearing the sound of it breaking. The slap cracked through the ballroom like a champagne bottle exploding against concrete. Every conversation inside the Grand Regent Hotel died instantly. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Crystal glasses hovered in trembling hands beneath the glow of 12-foot chandeliers. Sophia Bennett stood motionless beside table 17, one hand pressed protectively against her 8-month pregnant belly while the other slowly rose to her burning cheek. Her wedding ring caught the light as it trembled. Across from her, billionaire real estate CEO Nathaniel Hayes adjusted the cuff of his tuxedo like nothing unusual had happened. Like humiliating his wife in front of 200 investors, politicians, and socialites was merely another inconvenience in his carefully scheduled evening. "You embarrassed me," he said coldly, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. Again, somewhere near the orchestra stage, a woman gasped. Another guest lowered his phone too late. The recording had already started. Sophia could taste blood where the inside of her lip had scraped against her teeth. Metallic, warm, real. The baby kicked suddenly beneath her emerald maternity gown, sharp enough to steal her breath. Instinctively, both hands moved to her stomach. Breathe. Just breathe. But the room felt smaller now. Hotter. The massive ballroom with its marble columns and gold-trimmed ceilings suddenly seemed designed to trap her inside this moment forever. Then came the sound that made everything worse. Laughter. Soft at first, then louder. Vanessa Sinclair crossed one long leg over the other beside Nathaniel's chair, sipping champagne as though she were watching entertainment purchased specifically for her. Her diamond bracelet glittered under the ballroom lights. "Nathaniel," she said smoothly, "she's emotional again. Pregnancy hormones can make some women unstable." Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Nobody moved. Nobody intervened. Wealth had a way of making cruelty feel untouchable. Sophia looked around the room slowly, recognizing faces from magazine covers and charity galas. People who had smiled at her for years. Women who once complimented her floral centerpieces and asked about baby names now stared into wine glasses, pretending not to notice the tears gathering in her eyes. Nathaniel loosened his bow tie with visible irritation. "Go home, Sophia." His voice sounded exhausted now, almost bored. "Before you create an even bigger scene. Create a scene." The words hit harder than the slap itself. 20 minutes earlier, she had walked into the gala believing her husband might finally choose her. She had spent nearly an hour getting ready despite swollen ankles and relentless back pain. She had practiced smiling in the mirror, practiced looking like the perfect billionaire wife America expected her to be. But then she saw Vanessa wearing the diamond necklace Sophia received on her 5th wedding anniversary. And suddenly, every lie she had swallowed for the past year tasted poisonous in her throat. "I asked you one question," Sophia whispered, her voice shaking. "Why is she wearing my necklace?" Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Because I gave it to her." The words landed like shattered glass across polished marble floors. Vanessa smirked into her champagne flute. Somewhere behind Sophia, camera shutters clicked rapidly. The internet loved watching beautiful women fall apart in public. Nathaniel stepped closer now, lowering his voice just enough to sound dangerous. "You should be grateful I've tolerated this behavior for as long as I have." Sophia stopped breathing for half a second. Tolerated. As if carrying his son, sacrificing her law career, surviving 2 miscarriages, and standing beside him while he built a $900 million empire where inconveniences he deserved applause for enduring. Another kick from the baby, harder this time. Then suddenly, from somewhere near the ballroom entrance, a deep male voice cut through the silence. "Funny thing about powerful men," the stranger said calmly. "They always think nobody's recording." The ballroom doors closed softly behind the stranger, but the silence he left behind felt louder than the orchestra ever had. Nathaniel turned first, irritation flashing across his face as every head in the room shifted toward the entrance. The man standing there looked out of place among the tuxedos and diamonds. 6'2", broad shoulders beneath a charcoal overcoat still damp from Manhattan rain. Military posture. Calm eyes. The kind of calm that usually meant danger had already made peace with itself. Sophia's pulse stumbled the second she recognized him. Ethan Cole, 3 years older than her. Former Marine captain. Former law school prodigy. Former best friend. The same man Nathaniel once called a nobody with anger issues before Ethan disappeared from New York almost 8 years earlier. Ethan walked slowly across the ballroom floor, black dress, shoes clicking against polished marble, while dozens of cameras quietly turned toward him. "Who the hell invited you?" Nathaniel asked sharply. Ethan ignored him completely. His attention stayed fixed on Sophia, on the redness blooming across her cheek, on the way her hand trembled against the curve of her stomach. His jaw tightened once, barely noticeable, but Sophia saw it. "You should sit down," Ethan said quietly to her. The softness in his voice nearly shattered what little control she had left. Vanessa rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh great, another emotionally unstable protector." A few nervous laughs scattered around the room before dying almost immediately. Ethan finally looked at her. "You must be Vanessa Sinclair." Her smile faded slightly. "And you are the attorney who is going to make your next few years extremely expensive." Nathaniel stepped forward instantly. "Careful." Ethan nodded slowly. "That is exactly what I was thinking." The tension between them felt electric now, sharp enough to split the ballroom in half. Sophia suddenly became aware of every sound around her again. Ice clinking inside crystal glasses, the low hum of cameras recording, rain tapping softly against the massive windows overlooking Central Park. Somewhere near the back table, a woman whispered, "This is going viral by morning." Nathaniel exhaled hard through his nose, visibly trying to regain control of the room. He straightened his jacket and forced a smile toward the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this unfortunate family misunderstanding." Family misunderstanding. Sophia almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she remembered another ballroom 6 years earlier. Another black tie event. Nathaniel had held her hand all night back then because he was terrified investors would not take him seriously. He used to squeeze her fingers under tables whenever he got nervous before speeches. "You make me feel lucky," he whispered to her once inside a taxi after a fundraiser in Chicago. Back when his suits were rented. Back when they split one apartment in Brooklyn with broken heat and takeout containers stacked beside unpaid bills. Sophia had believed every word he ever said. Ethan's voice pulled her back into the present. "You need medical attention." Sophia blinked. "I am fine." "No," Ethan replied gently. "You are trying very hard not to fall apart in public." The sentence hit too close to the truth. Nathaniel scoffed. "Do not dramatize this. Nobody touched her except me, and it was hardly." He stopped himself too late. Every phone in the room lifted higher. Ethan tilted his head slightly. That was not a smart sentence. Vanessa suddenly stood, grabbing Nathaniel's arm. "We should leave." But Nathaniel's pride had already taken over. Sophia knew the look in his eyes. The same look he had the night he screamed at a waiter for bringing sparkling water instead of still. The same look he wore during board meetings right before somebody got fired. Wealth had convinced him consequences only happened to other people. "She is my wife," Nathaniel snapped. "This is my marriage. My business." Ethan took one slow step closer. "Not anymore." Then Sophia felt it. A sharp pain twisting low across her abdomen. Her breath caught instantly. One hand gripped the edge of the tablecloth while the other pressed harder against her stomach. Another pain followed. Stronger this time. Ethan noticed before anyone else did. "Sophia?" She tried to answer, but the words disappeared beneath a sudden wave of dizziness. The ballroom lights blurred. Somewhere far away, someone screamed for a doctor. Then warm liquid touched her ankle beneath the emerald gown. And suddenly every face in the room changed. The emerald fabric darkened slowly beneath Sophia Bennett's trembling hands. One drop, then another. Panic spread through the ballroom faster than gossip ever could. Chairs scraped violently across marble floors as guests stood all at once, expensive shoes stepping backward from the growing puddle near her heels. Nathaniel's face lost color for the first time that night. "Sophia?" His voice cracked slightly now. Human. Frightened. Too late. Ethan reached her before anyone else could move. "Look at me," he said firmly, steady hands supporting her shoulders as another wave of pain tightened across her stomach. Sophia tried to breathe through it, but fear had already wrapped itself around her ribs like wire. "The baby," she whispered. "Something is wrong. Stay with me." Ethan lowered her carefully into a chair while someone near the stage shouted for an ambulance. The orchestra musicians stood frozen beside their instruments, watching millionaires panic like ordinary people for the first time in their lives. Vanessa stepped backward slowly, her champagne glass still in hand. "Oh my God," she murmured, though the words sounded more shocked than concerned. Nathaniel finally crouched beside Sophia, reaching toward her arm. "Sophia, listen to me." She flinched before he even touched her. The movement hit him harder than any public humiliation could have. Ethan noticed it too. So did half the ballroom. Nathaniel pulled his hand back immediately. Cameras captured every second. Sophia closed her eyes against another sharp contraction. Somewhere inside the chaos, she remembered a different night. Snow falling outside their tiny Brooklyn apartment 8 years earlier. Nathaniel asleep on the couch with financial spreadsheets scattered across his chest while she stayed awake proofreading investor presentations for him at 2 in the morning. They used to survive on instant noodles and coffee because every spare dollar went into his company. Back then he kissed her forehead before every meeting and called her his lucky charm. Back then he still looked at her like she mattered more than success. "Breathe slowly," Ethan instructed gently. "You are okay." But Sophia was no longer sure that was true. Her body felt heavy and distant all at once. The ballroom lights above blurred into streaks of gold. Guests whispered frantically around them, while hotel security attempted to push phones down. It was pointless. The internet was already inside the room. Nathaniel stood abruptly, turning toward the crowd with fury burning across his face. "Put the damn cameras away." Nobody listened. Somewhere near table 6, a man quietly muttered, "This will destroy him." Nathaniel heard it. Ethan heard it too. But Sophia barely noticed anymore, because another memory had surfaced through the pain. For months earlier, Nathaniel coming home after midnight smelling like expensive perfume that did not belong to her. The faint lipstick stain near his collar. The way he looked annoyed instead of guilty when she asked where he had been. "You are too emotional lately," he told her that night. "Everything becomes drama with you." Drama. The same word wealthy men always used when women finally noticed betrayal. A hotel manager rushed forward holding blankets while paramedics pushed through the ballroom entrance carrying medical bags. The lead paramedic knelt beside Sophia immediately. "How far along are you?" 34 weeks. Ethan answered before she could speak. Possible premature labor triggered by stress. Nathaniel looked toward him sharply. "You are not her husband." Ethan never glanced away from Sophia. "No," he said calmly. "I am just the only person here acting like she matters." The sentence landed hard enough to silence the room again. Sophia felt tears burn behind her eyes, not from pain but exhaustion. Months of swallowing humiliation. Months of pretending not to see text messages hidden beneath locked screens. Months of hearing Vanessa's name whispered through Manhattan charity circles while Nathaniel insisted she was paranoid. One of the paramedics checked the baby's heartbeat monitor. The sound filled the ballroom instantly. Fast. Frantic. Too fast. Sophia grabbed Ethan's wrist. "Please," she whispered, panic flooding her voice now. "Do not let anything happen to my son." Ethan's expression hardened with absolute certainty. Nothing is happening to him. Then his eyes lifted slowly toward Nathaniel Hayes. Cold. Precise. Controlled. "But your life," Ethan said quietly, "is about to change forever." Rain hammered against the ambulance windows as Manhattan blurred into streaks of white and gold outside. Sirens screamed through midnight traffic while Sophia Bennett lay strapped to the stretcher, one trembling hand clutching the thin hospital blanket across her stomach. The baby's heartbeat echoed rapidly through the monitor beside her. Too fast. Too uneven. Every sharp electronic beep tightened the fear already crushing her chest. Ethan sat beside her without speaking for several seconds, watching the paramedic adjust wires against her skin with practiced calm. Nathaniel's black Rolls-Royce followed close behind the ambulance the entire way downtown. Sophia saw it once through the rear window at a red light. Headlights cutting through rain like accusation. "Your blood pressure is elevated," the paramedic said carefully. "Stress can trigger premature labor this late into pregnancy. We need to keep you calm." Calm. Sophia almost laughed at the impossibility of the word. Her entire life had collapsed in front of cameras less than an hour earlier. Somewhere online, millions of strangers were probably replaying the exact moment her husband struck her in public while his mistress smiled beside him. The humiliation felt endless now. Permanent. Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me carefully. Your son is still stable. Right now, that is all that matters." Sophia stared at the ambulance ceiling. White fluorescent lights flickered softly overhead, while memories drifted through her mind like ghosts refusing to leave. Nathaniel asleep beside her years ago inside their first apartment. The way he used to pull her against his chest during thunderstorms because she hated loud thunder ever since childhood. The cheap silver ring he proposed with before the money came. "I cannot give you much yet," he whispered back then. "But one day I will build something worthy of you." She believed him so completely it hurt to remember. The ambulance jerked slightly around a corner. Another contraction tightened across her abdomen hard enough to force a sharp breath from her lungs. Ethan noticed instantly. "How far apart now?" The paramedic checked the monitor. 7 minutes. Ethan's jaw flexed once. The hospital doors burst open moments later beneath a flood of white light and cold air. Nurses moved immediately around Sophia as the stretcher rolled through St. Catherine Medical Center. Ceiling tiles rushed overhead in endless rows while voices blurred together around her. 34 weeks. Possible stress-induced labor. Monitor fetal movement. Prep room 3. The smell of antiseptic filled her lungs. Sharp, sterile, safe, yet somehow terrifying. Ethan stayed beside her the entire time until a nurse finally stopped him outside the examination room. Family only. Sophia reached for his wrist before he could step away. "Please do not leave." Ethan looked down at her hand, gripping his sleeve. His expression softened for the first time all night. "I am not going anywhere." Then another voice interrupted from the far end of the hallway. "I am her husband." Nathaniel Hayes appeared beneath the fluorescent lights soaked from rain. Expensive hair disheveled for the first time in years. His tuxedo jacket hung open now. His face looked pale enough to frighten investors. Several nurses instantly recognized him. Sophia saw it happen in their eyes. Billionaire. Powerful. Important. Nathaniel moved toward her stretcher quickly. "Sophia, please. Let me explain." Ethan stepped between them before he could get closer. "Not tonight." Nathaniel's expression darkened immediately. "Move." "No." The hallway tension sharpened so fast nearby nurses stopped moving entirely. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. Once upon a time, two men standing like this over her would have felt romantic. Protective. Now it only felt exhausting. Nathaniel lowered his voice carefully, aware of hospital staff watching every word. "I made a mistake." Ethan gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "No. Forgetting an anniversary is a mistake. Publicly humiliating your pregnant wife while sleeping with another woman is character." Nathaniel's eyes flashed dangerously. "You know nothing about my marriage." "I know enough." Ethan reached slowly inside his coat pocket. Then he pulled out a slim black flash drive and held it between two fingers beneath the harsh hospital lighting. Nathaniel's entire body went still. Completely still. "Security footage uploads automatically to cloud servers now," Ethan said quietly. "Funny how rich people always forget cameras exist." Sophia watched the color drain from Nathaniel's face one terrifying second at a time. Then her doctor stepped into the hallway holding test results against her chest. Her expression looked far too serious. Dr. Melissa Carter stood beneath the fluorescent hallway lights, holding a clipboard so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The expression on her face made Sophia Bennett's stomach drop harder than the contractions themselves. Around them, the emergency floor continued moving at full speed. Nurses rushed past with rolling carts. Phones rang endlessly behind reception desks. Somewhere down the corridor, a child cried. But inside that small pocket of silence between the four of them, everything suddenly felt still. "Doctor," Sophia whispered weakly from the hospital bed. Melissa glanced once toward Nathaniel Hayes before focusing entirely on Sophia. "Your son is stable for now, but the stress has triggered early labor contractions. We managed to slow them temporarily." Sophia exhaled shakily. For one brief second, relief softened the crushing pressure in her chest. Then the doctor continued. "However, your blood pressure is dangerously elevated. If it rises again, we may have no choice except emergency delivery." Nathaniel stepped forward immediately. "Then do whatever is necessary." Ethan's eyes shifted toward him coldly. "Interesting. You suddenly sound concerned." Nathaniel ignored him completely, though tension flickered visibly through his jaw. Sophia watched both men through exhausted eyes while memories surfaced again, whether she wanted them or not. The first ultrasound appointment. Nathaniel crying quietly when they heard the heartbeat, because after 2 miscarriages neither of them believed this pregnancy would survive. He used to kiss her stomach every morning before work. Used to whisper, "That is my little fighter in there." Somewhere between becoming rich and becoming admired, he had stopped sounding like himself. Dr. Carter lowered her voice carefully. "Sophia needs rest immediately. No stress. No arguments. No visitors unless approved." Nathaniel nodded quickly. "I will stay with her." "No." The word came softly from Sophia herself. Yet somehow it silenced the hallway more effectively than shouting ever could. Nathaniel stared at her like he had misheard. "Sophia, I do not want you here tonight." His face tightened instantly. Hurt, anger, pride, all tangled together beneath the cold hospital lights. Ethan stepped slightly closer to Sophia's bedside, but said nothing this time. He did not need to. Nathaniel looked at Ethan for a long moment before turning back toward Sophia. "You are letting him poison you against me." Sophia almost smiled at the absurdity. "Nathaniel," she whispered tiredly, "you did that yourself." The sentence landed like a door, quietly locking forever. Nathaniel looked suddenly older standing there in his rain-soaked tuxedo. Not weaker, just exposed. Like a man realizing money could not buy control over this moment anymore. His phone buzzed sharply inside his pocket. Once, twice, then continuously. He ignored it at first until the vibration refused to stop. Finally, he glanced down. Sophia noticed the exact second panic entered his eyes. Ethan noticed too. Bad news. Nathaniel slid the phone away immediately. "Business." Ethan gave a slow nod. "Of course. Probably nothing important. Just your stock collapsing in real time." Nathaniel's silence confirmed everything. Somewhere online the gala footage had exploded. Billionaire CEO publicly humiliates pregnant wife. America loved stories about powerful men falling apart, especially when cameras captured it live. Nathaniel suddenly turned toward Ethan with visible fury. "You released the footage." "No," Ethan replied calmly. "You created it. The internet just did the rest." Another contraction hit Sophia hard enough to steal her breath again. Monitors began beeping faster beside the bed, while nurses moved quickly around her. Nathaniel instinctively stepped forward, but froze halfway when Sophia reached for Ethan instead. Not her husband. Ethan. The smallest movement in the world somehow shattered what remained of Nathaniel Hayes. Dr. Carter checked the monitor rapidly. Contractions are increasing again. Sophia squeezed Ethan's hand weakly. "I am scared." Ethan leaned closer, voice steady and low. "Your son is stronger than you think." Then his phone vibrated inside his coat pocket. One text message. Ethan glanced down briefly. His entire expression changed instantly. Not shock. Not fear. Calculation. He looked slowly toward Nathaniel, then back toward Sophia. Finally, he spoke 6 quiet words that made the room feel colder than the rain outside. "The federal investigators called me back." The hospital room fell completely silent after Ethan Cole spoke those 5 words. Federal investigators. Nathaniel Hayes stared at him without blinking, the color slowly draining from his face beneath the fluorescent lights. Outside the glass walls of the private maternity suite, nurses continued moving through the hallway carrying charts and medication trays, unaware that a billionaire's empire had just started collapsing floor by floor. Sophia Bennett lay against the raised hospital bed, breathing carefully through another contraction while the fetal monitor echoed beside her in uneven rhythms. Fast heartbeat. Slow inhale. Fast heartbeat again. Her entire body felt exhausted now, but her mind remained painfully awake. Nathaniel recovered first. Men like him always did. Years of boardrooms and negotiations had trained him never to panic publicly. He adjusted the cuff of his soaked white shirt slowly, though his fingers were no longer steady. "You are bluffing," he said quietly. Ethan slipped his phone back into his coat pocket. "I rarely bluff." Nathaniel laughed once under his breath, but there was no humor in it. "You really think some edited internet clip is enough to destroy me?" "No," Ethan replied calmly. "The offshore accounts will do that." The room changed instantly. Sophia saw it happen in Nathaniel's eyes before he could hide it. Shock first, then calculation, then fear. Real fear, not fear of losing money. Men-like. Nathaniel never feared that. He feared losing control. Sophia frowned weakly from the hospital bed. "Offshore accounts." Nathaniel turned toward her too quickly. "Sophia, listen to me." Whatever he told you. I have not told her anything yet, Ethan interrupted. But I can start now if you want. Nathaniel's jaw tightened visibly. Ethan moved toward the rain-covered window overlooking Manhattan while speaking with infuriating calm. 3 shell companies in the Cayman Islands. 2 hidden property transfers in Miami under Vanessa Sinclair's name. 1 undeclared investment fund routed through Luxembourg. Sophia stared at her husband in disbelief. Nathaniel looked away first. That hurt more than the answer itself. Memories surfaced instantly. Late nights when Nathaniel claimed he was handling international investors. Weekend conferences in Miami that suddenly required Vanessa's attendance too. The secretive phone calls he always took outside on balconies. Piece by piece, her marriage rearranged itself into something ugly and unfamiliar. You investigated me? Nathaniel snapped. Ethan finally looked at him again. No. Federal auditors did. I simply connected the dots after tonight. Sophia's breathing grew shallow. Nathaniel, tell me he is lying. Nathaniel opened his mouth, closed it again. For the first time since she met him 12 years earlier, Nathaniel Hayes looked like a man with no perfect answer prepared. The silence confirmed everything. Sophia turned her face slowly toward the ceiling while tears slipped quietly into her hairline. Not dramatic tears, not loud ones. The exhausted kind that arrive when the truth has finally become too heavy to carry anymore. Nathaniel stepped toward her bed desperately now. I did it for us. Ethan almost laughed again. That sentence should be carved onto the gravestone of every corrupt rich man in America. Stay out of this. I would love to, Ethan replied. Unfortunately, your wife collapsed tonight with elevated blood pressure while carrying your child because you chose ego over basic decency in front of 200 people and about 30 million viewers online. Nathaniel froze. 30 million? Ethan nodded. Once toward the television mounted high in the corner of the room. One of the nurses had left the financial news channel running silently in the background. Across the bottom of the screen, red letters flashed continuously beside Nathaniel's photograph. Hayes global stock plunges after charity gala incident. Even muted, the image felt deafening. Sophia watched Nathaniel slowly turn toward the television. Watched him realize the world was no longer looking at him with admiration. Wealthy men survived scandals all the time. But America hated one thing more than corruption: cruelty toward pregnant women. Another contraction suddenly twisted hard through Sophia's abdomen. She gasped sharply, gripping the hospital sheets while alarms beeped faster beside her bed. Nurses rushed into the room immediately. Dr. Carter checked the monitor quickly before looking up with growing concern. The baby is in distress again. Nathaniel instinctively moved closer but stopped when Sophia whispered 3 devastating words without even looking at him. Do not touch me. The delivery room lights felt painfully bright against Sophia Bennett's exhausted eyes. Machines beeped steadily around her, while nurses moved with controlled urgency beneath the cold white glow of St. Catherine Medical Center. Rain still streaked the tall hospital windows overlooking Manhattan, though dawn had started bleeding gray across the skyline. Somewhere out there, reporters were probably already gathering outside the hospital entrance. Billionaire scandal. Pregnant wife. Viral humiliation. America loved tragedy when rich people were involved. Sophia gripped the bed rails tightly as another contraction rolled through her body. Sweat dampened loose strands of hair against her temples, while Dr. Melissa Carter monitored the baby's heartbeat with growing concern. Stay focused on my voice, the doctor instructed gently. You are doing well. Nathaniel Hayes stood near the far wall of the room, looking completely out of place now. His tuxedo jacket was gone. His white shirt remained wrinkled and rain-stained from the night before. The polished billionaire image had disappeared somewhere between the gala, ballroom, and this hospital room. Ethan Cole remained beside Sophia without leaving once. Coffee cups had come and gone. Nurses changed shifts. Outside the windows, the city moved toward morning. Ethan stayed exactly where he was. Nathaniel noticed that too. You can leave now, Nathaniel said quietly after another painful silence settled across the room. Ethan never looked away from Sophia. No, Nathaniel's exhaustion finally cracked into frustration. This is still my wife. Sophia opened her eyes slowly. Then why did you stop treating me like 1 month ago? The words landed softly. That somehow made them worse. Nathaniel stared at her speechless while memories flooded through Sophia all at once. Their honeymoon in Maine. dancing barefoot in the kitchen of their first apartment because they could not afford furniture yet. Nathaniel crying into her shoulder after his father told him his business would fail within a year. She had carried him through every fear before he became powerful enough to believe he no longer needed kindness. Another contraction tightened sharply across her abdomen. The fetal monitor suddenly changed rhythm again. Fast, uneven, dangerous. Dr. Carter's face shifted immediately. We need to move faster. Nurses began adjusting equipment around the bed while tension spread through the room like electricity. Sophia's pulse raced beneath the monitor strapped to her wrist. Is he okay? She whispered fearfully. Dr. Carter forced a calm expression. His heart rate is dropping during contractions. We may need emergency intervention if this continues. Nathaniel stepped closer instinctively. Do whatever it takes. Ethan folded his arms slowly beside the bed. Interesting how quickly men become protective fathers once cameras are involved. Nathaniel turned toward him sharply. You think this is about publicity? Ethan's eyes hardened. I think everything in your life became about image a long time ago. Before Nathaniel could answer, the hospital room door suddenly opened again. Everyone turned. A tall silver-haired man stepped quietly inside wearing a dark wool coat despite the warm room. Late 60s. Sharp blue eyes. Calm posture that carried the unmistakable weight of authority. Sophia frowned weakly. She recognized him immediately from television interviews and newspaper headlines. Federal Judge Daniel Bennett, one of the most respected judges in New York. Nathaniel looked stunned. Your Honor. Daniel's gaze moved directly to Sophia first. Not Nathaniel. Not Ethan. Sophia. Something in his expression softened almost painfully as he looked at her lying there frightened and exhausted beneath harsh hospital lights. Ethan straightened slightly beside the bed but said nothing, like he had expected this moment all along. Sophia blinked in confusion. Why is he here? Nobody answered immediately. Rain tapped softly against the windows while the baby's monitor continued its uneven rhythm through the silence. Finally, Daniel stepped closer to the hospital bed. His voice was low when he spoke. Careful. Controlled. Sophia, he said quietly. There is something I should have told you many years ago. Nathaniel looked between them slowly, realization beginning to spread across his face. Ethan remained completely still. Sophia's heartbeat quickened painfully beneath the monitor. Daniel's eyes glistened under the fluorescent lights as he finally whispered the sentence that changed everything forever. I am your father. The sound that left Sophia Bennett's lips was barely more than a breath. What? The single word drifted through the hospital room, while every machine continued beeping around them with mechanical indifference. Federal Judge Daniel Bennett stood beside her hospital bed with rainwater still darkening the shoulders of his wool coat. For a man famous across New York for never showing emotion inside a courtroom, his eyes now looked painfully human. Nathaniel Hayes stared between them in stunned silence. Even Ethan Cole lowered his gaze briefly, allowing the weight of the moment to settle naturally through the room. Sophia's heartbeat monitor quickened again beneath trembling fingers. No, she whispered weakly. That is not possible. Daniel swallowed once before speaking. Your mother and I met during law school. We were young. I made choices I have regretted every day since. Sophia stared at him without blinking. Fragments of childhood memories suddenly rearranged themselves inside her mind. The anonymous scholarship checks that arrived after her mother passed away. The powerful judge who once stopped during a courthouse fundraiser just to ask Sophia whether she was still writing poetry. The strange expression he wore at her wedding years ago when Nathaniel introduced himself proudly beside her. Ethan stepped quietly toward the window, giving them space without fully leaving. Nathaniel remained frozen near the far wall, looking like a man watching his own future disappear in real time. Daniel continued carefully. Your mother asked me never to interfere with your life. She wanted you to build your own future without my influence. Sophia's voice trembled harder now. So you watch from a distance? Daniel nodded slowly. For years. Tears gathered instantly in Sophia's eyes. Exhaustion, betrayal, shock. Everything inside her felt too heavy to carry anymore. You knew what was happening to me. Daniel's jaw tightened painfully. Not until tonight. Nathaniel finally found his voice again. Your Honor, whatever misunderstanding this is. Daniel turned toward him with the kind of calm that frightened powerful men more than yelling ever could. Do not speak to her right now. Nathaniel actually stopped talking. The room noticed. Men like Nathaniel Hayes did not take orders well from anyone. But federal judges were different. Especially federal judges connected to scandal investigations. Another contraction suddenly twisted through Sophia's body hard enough to steal her breath. The monitors spiked sharply. Nurses moved quickly around the bed while Dr. Carter checked the baby's heartbeat again. Her expression changed instantly. "We cannot wait much longer." Sophia grabbed the side rails tightly as panic spread through her chest. "Please tell me my son is okay." Dr. Carter looked directly into her eyes. "He is fighting, but stress is affecting both of you." Ethan returned to the bedside immediately. "Look at me," he said steadily. "You are stronger than tonight." Sophia tried to focus on his voice while another wave of pain rolled through her body. Nathaniel suddenly stepped closer despite himself. "Sophia, I never wanted this." Ethan's eyes lifted coldly. "You wanted control. Men like you just never expect consequences to arrive publicly." Nathaniel looked toward the television still running silently in the corner of the room. His company's stock continued crashing live across every financial network in America. Commentators dissected the gala footage frame by frame beneath giant headlines about abuse allegations and federal financial investigations. Vanessa Sinclair's photograph appeared beside his now associated with offshore transfers. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly, like someone physically struck by the sight. Then his phone rang again. This time he answered immediately. "What?" Silence. Then the blood drained from his face completely. "How many resign?" Another silence. Nathaniel lowered himself slowly into a chair beside the wall, as though his legs had stopped functioning properly. Sophia watched the transformation happen in real time. Billionaire, celebrity investor, political donor. None of it mattered inside this hospital room. He suddenly looked like every frightened man who realizes power cannot save him from himself. Dr. Carter looked up sharply from the monitors. "We are losing the heartbeat during contractions." Nurses moved instantly around the room preparing equipment while alarms began sounding louder now. Sophia's entire body trembled beneath the hospital blankets. Ethan squeezed her hand firmly. Daniel stepped closer to the bed, his voice breaking for the first time. "Please hold on, sweetheart." Nathaniel looked up sharply at the word sweetheart. Then finally, for the first time all night, true terror entered his eyes. The delivery room exploded into motion beneath harsh white hospital lights. Nurses moved around Sophia Bennett in coordinated urgency, while monitors screamed sharp electronic warnings through the air. Rain still hammered the windows outside St. Catherine Medical Center, but dawn had fully arrived now, turning the Manhattan skyline pale silver beyond the glass. Sophia could barely hear any of it anymore. Pain rolled through her body in relentless waves while Dr. Melissa Carter issued rapid instructions beside the bed. "Prepare for emergency delivery. Monitor oxygen levels. Keep the heartbeat stable." Sophia gripped Ethan Cole's hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. Fear had stripped everything else away now. No gala. No cameras. No billionaire scandal. Only her son mattered. "Please," she whispered weakly through trembling breaths. "Please save him." Ethan leaned closer immediately. "You are going to meet your son today," he said steadily. "And one day he will know exactly how hard his mother fought for him." Nathaniel Hayes stood frozen near the corner of the room while doctors surrounded the woman he once claimed was the center of his world. His phone continued vibrating nonstop in his pocket, but he no longer looked at it. Nothing happening on Wall Street mattered anymore. Not the collapsing stock price. Not the emergency board meetings. Not the reporters gathering outside his company headquarters. Every piece of power he spent years building suddenly felt worthless beside the sound of his unborn son struggling to survive. Judge Daniel Bennett stood silently near the doorway, watching Sophia with visible heartbreak in his eyes. 30 years of distance. 30 years of secrecy. And now he might lose the daughter he never truly had the courage to claim. Sophia cried out softly as another contraction surged through her body. Dr. Carter checked the monitor again. "The heartbeat is recovering slightly. Keep breathing, Sophia. Stay with us." Nathaniel stepped forward instinctively. "Sophia," she looked at him finally. Really looked at him for the first time all night. Not as the billionaire CEO from magazine covers. Not as the ambitious young man she once loved inside a tiny Brooklyn apartment. Just a man. Flawed. Frightened. Too late. Tears filled Nathaniel's eyes instantly. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I know. The words nearly broke him, because forgiveness was not inside her voice, only exhaustion. Sophia closed her eyes as memories drifted through her mind one final time. Nathaniel teaching her how to dance barefoot in their kitchen, holding her during their first miscarriage while both of them cried too hard to speak, promising her they would survive anything together. Somewhere along the way, he stopped protecting what mattered and started protecting only his image. The monitors suddenly changed rhythm again. Faster now. Stronger. Dr. Carter's expression shifted immediately. That is it. We are stabilizing. Relief spread visibly through the room while nurses adjusted equipment around the bed. Then finally, after endless terrifying hours, a new sound pierced through the hospital room.